This reminds me of the early 1990s. I was writing about the internet, and people would look at me like, internet? What's that? It's the same thing today. Blockchain? My name's Don Tapscott, and I'm the co-author with my son Alex of a new book called Blockchain Revolution. We've become convinced that the most important technology for the next decade or more is not big data, it's not the mobile web, it's not the cloud, it's not robotics, it's not machine learning or even artificial intelligence, it's the blockchain. Now, not the most sonorous term in the world, blockchain. Sounds like chain gang and block and tackle. But this is the technology that underlines digital currencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And this technology basically enables us to establish trust to do transactions without powerful intermediaries. And as such, it holds the promise of rewriting the economic and social power grid, of changing the nature of the firm, the way that we go about taking care of ourselves in society, democracy, culture, every institution. We call it a blockchain revolution because we think it is that. That the internet is basically entering a second era. We've had the internet of information, and now we get the internet of value, where money, land titles, stocks, bonds, anything that is a digital asset can be exchanged peer-to-peer and can be stored on this worldwide immutable record. It's like a big global spreadsheet.
Today, the financial services industry has a bunch of problems. For one, it's antiquated. It runs on technology in some instances that's 30 or 40 years old. Mainframe computers from the 1970s are involved in processing payments. You might tap your card at a card reader at Starbucks and think the value is transferring on a peer-to-peer basis, but in fact, it's traveling through a Byzantine system of intermediaries, and it takes days to clear and settle. The same applies for trades in financial instruments like stocks and bonds. It can take anywhere from 3 to 25 days to settle transactions in those kinds of instruments. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is it's exclusionary. 2.5 billion people in the world have no access to financial services, which means they've got no way to actively engage in the global economy. It's overly concentrated, and that stifles innovation and prevents growth in new services and new products, and that's ultimately bad for the consumer. And it's governed by regulations which are antiquated, in some cases don't fully cope or deal with the technological change that's happening. The laws for money transmission in New York are from the 19th century, when the primary way of moving value around was horse and buggy. So there's all these problems, and what can blockchain do? Well, blockchain can radically simplify the way we perform all of those different functions. So let's take an example. The largest flow of funds into the developing world is not direct foreign investment, it's not foreign aid, it's remittances. Money that's transferred home from diasporas living abroad, $600 billion. The average fees on that is around 10%. And that's 10% that's being charged to the most vulnerable people in the world, and it directly and adversely affects the economies of some of the poorest places. For example, in the Philippines, it's 13% of the GDP. In Haiti, it's 1/3 of the GDP is remittances. Normally, what someone has to do to send remittances today is travel to a physical location like a Western Union to fill out paper forms after waiting in line for an hour or more, to hand over physical cash to someone who then immediately charges 5 to 10%, and then a bunch of hidden fees. That value takes days to reach the end recipient, usually a family member living in a poor area where they have to travel twice or 3 times as long to pick it up. Finally, there's a solution to this. So enter companies like Abra, Paycase, and other blockchain startups that want to leverage the blockchain to move value around the world. Rather than having to go to Western Union, you would load up money on your phone, send it directly peer-to-peer using the blockchain so that it clears and settles instantly with your family member living abroad. That would take 5 seconds, not 5 days. So that's a big improvement. It would also cost 0.5% rather than 10%, another big improvement. But in the places like the Philippines, people want cash. They pay for their groceries in cash, they pay their rent in cash. What companies like Abra, for example, have done is enabled people to act as tellers on the back end. So like an Uber driver, you would load up your phone, you'd see someone's got a 5-star rating and they're 2 blocks away. You'd agree to meet at the nearby coffee shop and exchange the virtual pesos for physical pesos. The entire process takes 10 to 15 minutes, cost 1%, and it happens seamlessly using blockchain technology. That's $600 billion, and that's just scratching the surface. So of all the other golden eight, as we call them, there's an opportunity to fundamentally reorient how the financial services industry works in a way that will ultimately make the global economy more secure, more efficient, and more inclusive.